Back down here on Earth, we're seeing a major shift in U.S. foreign policy with Russia. President Trump says his national security team will begin immediate negotiations with the Kremlin to bring the war in Ukraine to an end. This after his phone call with Russian leader Vladimir Putin. For more on this, we are speaking now with former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor, joining us from San Angelo. We know that you served at the end of President George W. Bush's term and into President Obama's first term. So I'm wondering how you view what President Trump said about what he believes would bring an end to the war in Ukraine.
Well, I think everybody wants the end of this war. No one wants the peace more than the Ukrainians. So if that prospect is on the horizon, that's good for them. And that's good for the United States and it's good for Europe. So that's the first thing. Then the question is how to get there. And we've gotten some hints, as you say. There is a major effort now that President Trump has described in conversations both with President Putin and with President Zelensky. And we know the general outlines of that. We think we know the general outlines of that agreement that will kind of hold on to the current situation on the ground. Which is very painful, by the way, for the Ukrainians, and they will never, Errol, they will never give up claim to the rest of their territory that the Russians now occupy. But they're willing to have this conversation if the other big piece of this deal, if the Ukrainians can get some guarantee, some serious guarantee that the Russians will not invade again, and that is likely to be a European force on the ground in Ukraine. And this is what they were talking about yesterday at NATO.
Now, we know that a majority of Ukrainians, according to one poll, support reaching a ceasefire. But as you know better than anyone, there's always a difference between what diplomats say publicly and what is really being discussed behind the scenes. And I think what's confusing some is that Defense Secretary Hegseth said the U.S. does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is realistic. So I'm wondering what the strategy is in saying that out loud and what leverage it gives Ukraine to get concessions from Russia.
Well, the first thing I would say is there should be no conversations with the Russians about Ukraine's membership in NATO. That's not on the table. And that's technically, actually, literally what Secretary Hegseth said. He said that Ukraine's membership in NATO is not part of the negotiation, not part of the deal with the Russians. That's right. The Ukrainian membership in NATO is going to be between Ukraine and NATO. And not the Russians. So that's fine. The other thing he did say was that the United States would not have troops on the ground for this security force that the Europeans are talking about, that the British and the French and others are talking about putting troops on the ground to guarantee, again, that the Russians don't invade. And the Secretary said that there would not be U.S. troops in that. He did not say that there would be no support. That is, the United States might well support in other ways that security force.
We've also heard President Trump insist that the U.S. should receive some type of financial compensation in the form of access to the minerals which are in some of the disputed territory. I wonder what you make of that and what it means for a potential negotiated settlement and its possibility to even happen.
Errol, I don't think that's going to be part of the settlement either. I think that is an arrangement between the United States and Ukraine. And this actually was a suggestion, a proposal, an idea that President Zelensky brought to Washington last year in part of his victory plan and proposed the United States be able to develop these rare earths, these strategic critical minerals. And that seems to be part of that. President Trump seems to be very interested in that Zelensky proposal. That's not part of this deal. What that will do is will allow the United States to continue to provide the weapons and the ammunition to Ukraine to keep fighting the Russians until they stop as a ceasefire.
So just in our last few seconds, the possibility of getting to a ceasefire and ending this war, you feel is?
I think there is a real possibility. I think there is a real possibility. All sides want it. The Russians are hurting. They need to stop this war. They've got incredible economic problems. The Ukrainians obviously want to stop this war, and Europeans do, and the United States does. So, yes, I think there's a real possibility this war could end this year.
Ambassador Taylor, great to get your insight. We appreciate you joining us, waking up early there in San Angelo, Texas, and joining us. Thank you.
Thank you.